Dear participants, welcome to the launch of the second phase of the KIX EMAP, formerly known as KIX EAP Hub. My name is Veronica Mosolova. I'm the project officer for the KIX EMAP Hub. I will be the technical host for the session, and therefore I will start with a brief technical introduction before we start the event. First of all, please note that language interpretation is available in English, Arabic, and Russian. You can enable it by clicking on the interpretation icon at the bottom of the screen. Уважаемые участники, на мероприятии доступен синхронный перевод на русский язык. Вы можете включить эту опцию на нижней панели меню. Если вам нужна помощь в настройке перевода, пожалуйста, напишите нам в чат.
توجد الترجمة الفورية متوفرة باللغة العربية إذا كنت ترغب في المتابعة.
Interpretation is available into Arabic and Russian in case you need the translation. Kindly choose the globe functionality, the interpretation functionality, and choose your preferred language.
As all microphones will be muted at this event. However, we invite you to keep your camera on if possible to create a friendlier and more engaging atmosphere in the room. Please note that we are recording this event for public dissemination. And as a reminder, you can select the language channel at the bottom of the screen. We invite you to rename yourself. You can do it by going to the participants window at the bottom of the screen. You can write your full name and your organization or your country. We also invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. Please write your full name, your organization, and your country. And you can also use the chat in case of any technical issues. You can write to me, Veronica Mosolova, privately, as I'm the technical host for the session. There will be several Q&A sessions at this event. Please write your questions at any time during the meeting. We will group questions and address them at the Q&A session. When you ask your question, please write your full name, your country, and maybe your organization. Follow us on Twitter at KIX EMAP and use our official hashtags KIX EMAP and GPKIX. For more information, we invite you to visit our website, norg.org, KIX EMAP. Now that the technical introduction is over, I invite the director of the KIX EMAP Hub, José Luis Canellas, to give some introductory words. José Luis, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Hello and warm greetings to everyone in the room today. Happy to see you all here for the regional launch of KIX EMAP 2.0. As you know, the KIX Knowledge Innovation Exchange Program has been recently extended to June 2027. After a first phase of work that started in 2020. KIX is a global partnership for education mechanism implemented with Canada's International Development Research Centre. Regional hubs, as our KIX EMAP Hub, are one of the components of the KIX program. You will notice that our hub was previously named as EAP and is now the EMAP Hub. EMAP reflects better the region our hub is serving, with E for Europe, M for MENA, Middle East, North Africa, A for Asia, and P for Pacific. Today is officially the first day of our second phase of work, and let me share with you our planned agenda. First, we'll have welcoming words by Maura Fall, Executive Director of NORAG. NORAG is a global network for international policies and cooperation in education and training that hosts our EMAP Hub. After that, we'll have the pleasure to learn more about the KIX program level and KIX research projects in this new phase with Margarita Lopez, Senior Program Specialist with the KIX program team at the International Development Research Center. Following that, one of the key aspects of this next phase of the KIX Hub's work is the greater articulation and complementarity with GPE's country work. In this context, we have with us today Javier Luque, GPE country leads, who will share with us GPE's system transformation strategy and examples of its operationalization. We'll then move to our EMAP Hub presentation, where our team will share about our hub's approach to this new phase, the new sub-regional organization, and communicate what is coming next. Wish you all a pleasant event, and as always, we invite you to include any questions or comments you have directly in the chats. And now it's my pleasure to invite Nora Fall to share some welcoming words to our regional launch.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, José Luis, for this opportunity to say a few words. We are absolutely thrilled that we now have the possibility to continue with the fantastic work of this team. And I have a few slides. If you could just let me share the slides, please, Veronica. Thank you. And fundamentally, this particular piece of work, this project, this KIX Hub has been fantastic, thank you, is absolutely central to NORAG's work. We are an associated program of the Graduate Institute in Geneva, and the KIX Hub that we host, as I said, is an absolutely critical part of our work. Next slide, please. Where really the vision that NORAG has is to contribute to making a world where everyone enjoys the right to equitable, quality, and accessible lifelong education and training, and really thinking about that education and training as a public and a common good. And so what we are doing in our work is to participate in the creation of conditions. We know that we're not going to do this on our own, but we do have our mission is to make sure that we are participating in the improvements that we can see need to be made. These are the 4 themes in which NORAG works. So we have all of those themes in order to feed into our mission. So the first theme is on data and evidence. The second theme is on education and the other SDGs. And the third, innovations and disruptions, which is where this KIX Hub sits in our strategy more broadly. And the fourth one, asking the question, can private sector approaches contribute to access, equity, and quality in education? And the KIX Hub is an absolutely critical part of that third theme of innovations and disruptions, because it is absolutely clear that the innovations that are needed in order to transform education systems, as we know that we need to be coming from the places of need, the places where the need is felt. That's where you'll get the innovations that are actually going to support the change that needs to be made. And this is the reason why we're so proud of hosting the GPE funded and IDRC coordinated KIX EMAP Hub. Next slide, please. And that speaks very much to this initiative, which I'm sure many of you have already heard about, which is the South Also Knows. And you can see that map, which is deliberately upside down, because the objective of this initiative is really to make sure that we are contributing to reversing the flow of knowledge from the north to the south, and actually allowing expertise and evidence and knowledge and perspectives that we know are there in the South to be heard, to be amplified, to be centered, to be seen as being the most relevant to what it is that is actually happening in those countries. And if you click on that QR code now, then you can join that South Also Knows network. It's a network for experts, and we mean experts in whatever it is that you are working in. You are an expert. It's not just about professors in universities. And it's about a network for those experts, and it's also a searchable database. So if somebody thinks, oh, I have a question about education in Kyrgyzstan, and they go to the South Also Knows, then they might be able to find you if you are an expert on education from Kyrgyzstan or from the Maldives or from any of the other countries in this new expanded, very exciting KIX EMAP Hub. And the final slide, please. And then just also, you as KIX members, you also are very welcome to join the NORAG network. We're a network of 5,600 people around the world, all of whom are working to improve education wherever it is that they work in, and working in a number of different themes, as well as a number of different parts of the world, as well as a number of different levels or spaces in different education systems. So you're very welcome to join us there if you haven't already. And I'm so pleased to be able to say that we continue to be part of this GPE IDRC KIX program of work. And José Luis and the KIX team are doing such fantastic work. Everyone in NORAG is so proud of the work that is being done in this program, and we're so glad to be able to continue it. So thank you for the work you have done, and for all of you participants, the work that you have been doing in your own countries. And we look forward to continuing with that. José Luis, over to you.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you for the warm welcoming words. I now hand over to Margarita Lopez from KIX IDRC team to walk us through a presentation on consolidating learning and exchange, KIX extension in the EMAP region. Margarita, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. So I say also good evening. I know that we are in very different time zones. So it's a pleasure to be today with you. I'm Margarita Lopez, working at the IDRC, International Development Research Center, based in Ottawa. So it's early. For me, it's 6 a.m. So it's why I say good morning. And just to introduce that and to join Moira that talked about all this fantastic work that the Hub has done during the past years. Yes, congratulations to all of you participants also that make it that possible. So today we have like a double objective. We have people that are convening, that are coming and have been working with the Hub for the past 3 years, and we have new people that are really welcome. So we are so excited that this new phase that KIX is starting is including new countries also. So when I'm talking, I'm trying to be enough like talking in a very general way to join these two different audiences, people that knows about KIX, so the Knowledge and Innovation Exchange Initiative, and people that are really starting to discover and to join the Hub, in this case, KIX in general. So we can go to the next slide, please. What is happening during the extension? I will focus more on that, this new phase that we will have in the next years that José Luis mentioned at the beginning. So we will continue really to work in this knowledge generation, mobilization, and exchange. And in this triangle, we see that the 3 main pillars that are guiding our work, KIX work in general. And we all, you and us, all work on through these 3 mechanisms that are interrelated, articulated, and that have the objective to really support education systems in the countries that are partner to the Global Partnership for Education. So I'm like highlighting here the learning exchange, because today we are like in the scope of the learning exchange. What the Hub does is more that learning exchange. So this is like the main core of this mechanism. But of course, we have the others, applied research and country support. And I will talk today more about applied research, telling you what we had done during the past years and what will be the future in the next 3 years, and maybe briefly touching about the country support. Learning exchange will be like the topic that the Hub will present later, so I don't want to go there. So just briefly, because there are many things to tell you and to discuss with you about this KIX support to applied research. But I would like to focus on some principles that are important, that we all share, that we all understand. What are the pillars and the base for this learning generation, so that we are waiting for this applied research. So KIX is not doing anything, every type of research. No, the idea is it is applied research, not very theoretical. This is not like a research that will last for 10 years. This is applied research, and we want to be really responding to countries, to the demands and requests, needs of countries. So this is demand driven. We give priority to Southern research. That means, yes, we want to have organizations from the South doing research, applying research. So this is the big purpose, to support and to have Southern organizations leading, or in the majority of the cases, if possible, or participating in any case in larger group of researchers. So we want also to insist always in this intersectional approach to support gender equality, equity, and inclusion. This is a main topic in all our research, the supported research. And we always ask, okay, how are we really improving inclusion with this research? And one main point, of course, is that we have uptake of results by decision makers and public policy. This is not only research to put like under the on the table and forget it. No, this is really, we want to have an influence in policy, and that this research is very useful for countries, and that this research can affect and have an impact in the large public sector education, public education, so that decision makers and public policy adopts like the results of the research. So I would say that are the main principal points for this that are under the research, the applied research we are supporting from KIX. As I said, I don't want to go in to the other points. Maybe just to mention that in this new phase, we are giving a more space to the country support. So what the countries are specifically needing, because in the past phase of KIX, we were more working in countries groups, so clusters of countries. Research even was more like always like including several countries. So in this new phase, we are opening a place to respond to specific demands from countries, always articulated with the work that the Global Partnership for Education is doing with each country. And this is something that is new, and that is developing and will come in the next years. But just to maintain my focus on this applied research, please, we can go to the next slide, and I will go just to some examples that you know what we have done. So during the first phase, and very broadly, in this region, in the EMAP region, we have funded 15 applied research projects. That this is an interesting number of projects, of course. And if you think about learning coming from there, and the number of countries participating, so 17 countries of the region participating in this research. So this is important. This is really significant for the region, I think, for KIX in terms of learning. The themes that were like developed or that have been like at the core of this research. So we have teaching and learning, early child education, gender equality and inclusion, learning assessment systems, and data systems. So we had calls, two big calls, two, or it depends, one global call and 4 regional calls, and that really target these teams, and researchers are working on that. The project have not finished, so they are working on these topics. So we have had also an increased interest of stakeholders to use research, including in public policy process. So, and this is something that our MEL system, monitoring and evaluation system, is showing, that there are like authorities from Ministry of Education, of sometimes local authorities, really engage with the research, and this is fantastic. This is really the purpose of that. So the point is, there have been an effort to include all these stakeholders since the beginning. This is not just researchers doing things and bringing examples, but since the beginning, having all these people from the Ministries of Education, from other local authorities, from the civil society working in the research. So that has been the first phase. Now, what are we waiting for the new extension of KIX? So we will have more systematic learning coming from this past phase one, and we are planning. So we started with some synthesis studies that will be published, and the topics are out of school children. So what we are learning from our project research on out of school children, early child education, teacher professional development, and gender equality and inclusion. So we will have this systematic synthesis, if you want, that will be produced in the next months, and you will be part of that. We will share with you all of this, of course, in the next months. And interesting, we will have 5 calls for proposals. Probably you heard already about that. We had 2 calls that the first one on data systems and the second on gender equality and inclusion, and we will have in November, and I invite you to be aware of that. So we will have a call to for proposals, for research proposals on teachers in general. So maybe teacher professional development, but let's say teachers and teaching, and early child education. So that will be the time to move, to invite people to apply to these calls and have the possibility to do research in the region on those in those topics. So we are expecting that probably something like 15 projects in the region. It depends more or less how it would work. Will be probably active in the new projects. Will be active in the region in the next year, let's say. And one purpose, of course, is to continue to consolidate efforts to mobilize evidence. So this is just like the big picture of about what is happening. And maybe just one example in the next slide, for you to have the flavor of what it is, what I'm talking about. When we do or we support applied research work, what is it? So here you have only one example. I said that we have 15 projects, applied research works in the region. Here is only one: effectiveness and scalability of programs for children who are out of school and at risk of dropping out in Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. Probably, I'm sure that the researchers from this project are also part of the audience today. I hope that. So just briefly to say, this is a fantastic project that is doing exploration, and I have some words here that are common to the research projects: exploration, evidence, what is the evidence, how to share this evidence, how to do adaptations, and also how to manage these equity, inclusion, and gender equality issues through the project. This is super important also. And one very important question always is how to scale the impact of research. So this kind of situations you will find in all the research projects in the region and in the world, because we are doing that in 4 different regions in the world. And so I invite you to explore what KIX is doing in terms of research. In the website, we have like the presentation of the research. Sometimes there are blogs that have been published, etc. So I don't want to talk more because there are other topics to discuss today. But just to insist, we have learning coming for all this research, and we will have more research to do. So you are all invited to be part of that. And I'm so happy, so exciting to be today with you and to have the possibility to share that. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Margarita, for providing us the overview of the KIX program, talking about also the changes that are coming with the KIX research, what is continuing as well. I didn't saw any comments or questions directly in the chat. So what I propose we do is that we move to the presentation from Javier Luque, and then we take some time for questions to both Margarita's and Javier's presentation. So I hand over to Javier, who is the country lead for GPE, to share on GPE's 2025 strategy for catalyzing transformation in education. Javier, the floor is yours.
Mute. Okay. I'm mute. Yes, no. Hi. Thank you, Jose Luis, and thanks for everyone. Can we start the presentation, please? Okay. Well, again, thanks for the invite to be part of this launch. And of course, we at GP are extremely happy, pleased to see how KIX has been evolving and what is the ambitious objectives that you are setting in KIX 2.0. We are now our part, GP. We also have very ambitious objectives in what we call GP 2025, which is our current operating model. But before getting into that, the focus on presentation will just make me make a couple of refreshers that some of you may know, but some of you may not be so familiar. First, GPE, of course, is the Global Partnership for Education. GPE is a fund and is a global partnership. In the sense of global partnership, the idea is that we bring together the main actors in education at the global level. And as a fund, we fund education programs in countries, and we are the largest fund dedicated exclusively to education. Currently, I mean, GPE started when the world was working on the Millennium Objective, Millennium Development Objective around 2000. Some of you may remember that. And now we are working I mean, we are aligned with the Sustainable Development Objectives, the SDGs, and we are implementing our current cycle of funding, that what we call GP 2025. GP 2025 was launched actually in 2020 when we have a major call to replenish our funds, and we got several mandates when we did the replenishment. No, so GP 2025 really is how we implement those mandates that we got in 2020. And we were quite successful in terms of raising resources for our fund. We almost raised around $5 billion, but the objectives that were set by donors and member countries were really high. Next slide, please. So you have to remember 2020, no? When during those years we were like starting to talk about learning loss in general, and the World Bank has just launched their education report, where they're talking about how education was not fulfilling their promises, etc. And then came COVID, and COVID put, of course, all this pressure in the education system with school closures and so on. No, so when the GP 2025 model was being designed, we partners, member countries were put very high expectations in terms of what they wanted. No, so they asked us to help transform the education systems to meet the challenges of the 21st century. They asked us to be innovative and think unconventionally unconventionally. They asked us to be bold and aspirational, and they asked us to take unprecedented and disruptive action. No, so in summary, the demand that we got at that time was that we had to make a big shift, not to stop doing business as usual. And really, if we really wanted to have sustainable changes in the education sector. Next slide, please. So that's how, I mean, this high ambition is what really shaped our GP 2025 strategic framework that I am presenting in this slide. So our mission remains that a quality education for every child should be there. Our mission turned into to mobilize partnerships and investments that transform education systems in developing countries, leaving no one behind. No, so this will be key for GP 2025, the phrase transform education systems. We will talk a little more about that, but just bear that in the top of your head. No? We are here trying to transform education systems. Our goal is to accelerate learning outcomes and gender equality through equitable, inclusive, and resilient education systems fit for the 21st centuries. And let me emphasize here gender equality, which is also a high priority and a high ambition that we have within GP 2025. And we set 3 what we call country-level objectives. The first country-level objectives is to strengthen gender-responsive planning, policy development for system-wide impact. The second country-level objective is mobilize coordinated action and financing to enable transformative change. And the third is to strengthen capacity, adapt, and learn to implement and drive results at the scale. All this will happen within an enabling global objective that is to mobilize global and national partners and resources for sustainable results. No, and maybe one thing that I didn't mention in the introduction is the country level. No, so when I defined GPE, I said that we are a fund and a partnership at a global level, but very importantly, we replicate the partnership at the country level. So some of you or all of you may have heard of the local education groups that GP promotes within countries. No, and the idea is that the local education groups should mirror the global partnership, and to be this platform that countries have to discuss education policy and explore an alternative how to reach system transformation. No, so probably, I mean, for those of you that have worked in the past with GPE or working with GPE funds and initiatives, you know that for us, the local education group is extremely important and as the coordinating body in country, and in a way, the grants that we allocate to countries are in a way decided and endorsed and sustained by the action of the partners of the local education group. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, but I started saying the system and system transformation is extremely important for us. No, let me start first mentioning the importance of using the word system. No, and in a way, the word system that we're using now, in a way, replaces the word sector that we used to use in the past. And the idea is that the system approach shifts the focus from interventions to address specific problems towards broader changes that require improved learning and sustainability. The system approach helps us to identify obstacles to sector-wide progress. And the sector approach helps us to align key actors behind transformative prioritized reforms. The systems approach helps us into mobilizing and targeting resources. And the system approach helps us in gathering timely evidence to drive delivery and enable course corrections. But here, the point to emphasize here is that, again, we're moving from the sector approach to the system approach when a key element is that we identify the system. The education is a system where different elements are interrelated, and really to move change, we have to generate change and promote transformation. We have to ensure that the whole system is moving. No, we cannot keep working in silos within the education system because, again, everything is interrelated. And so we are promoting transformation. No, and the idea is that system transformation refers to bold reforms that accelerate education progress beyond incremental change of business as usual, and support large-scale change for benefit of a sizable number of children, including the most marginalized. No, again, so this is idea. We have the concept of system, fixed interrelated, but now we have to move it. No, we have to transform, take it to the next level. No, and to achieve that, no, to have that move, we have to have really bold reforms, and that's what we are promoting within EP 2025. Well, I already mentioned this. A system is comprised of a complex and predictable interdependent web of components and different people pulling in multiple directions, often with different, sometimes opposing priorities, inputs, and processes. No, I mean, again, this is the idea of a system, different elements that need to be aligned. A system approach embraces complexity and embodies a process to move key actors in the system through prioritized reforms, aimed at blocking challenges to generate impact at scale, triggering ripple effects across various priority reforms. And supporting system transformation requires a shift in the approach from a predominant focus on a sector, while entry points to a prioritized focus to unblock system challenge, addressing the root causes of the barriers to equitable learning, and doing so with adequate resources to deliver change. Okay, so here, the key concepts here, no system, things are interrelated in the sector. To transform it, we need to be bold, but also we need to be key in identifying what is the focus, what is the key root cause that makes the system, that keeps the system stagnant. No, and that's what we are going to ask you, as we ask countries to do a prioritization on how to intervene, and also to find what are the main factors that may be impeding the country to achieve system transformation. Next slide, please. So we have created what we call the pathway for system transformation. No, and of course, in different countries, the pathway will look different, but these are like the three main stages that we envision in that pathway. No, first, the country should start a process of assessing and diagnosing the current situation of the education sector. No, and of course, in this stage, we expect there to be local dialogue at the local education group. We expect through this dialogue, the country will identify which is the key priority reform to address. Then they will fill some screening questionnaire that we have prepared in order to help you identify what are the key areas to address if we want to move forward with system transformation, in order to identify the key bottlenecks. And this identification of key bottlenecks is what we call the analysis of enabling factor. No, so again, first stage of this pathway for system transformation is the local education group assessing and diagnosing where we are, where we want to be, what is the key priority reform. No, and we at GPE has identified 7 or 8 priority reforms, which the usually cited ones are like expanding access, enabling, improving education quality, improving early learning, addressing teacher issues, finding sustainable finance, addressing key organizational issues, and name 7. And then the idea is, so then the country has to identify what may be the main obstacle for the country to achieve those priorities, and that's what we call enabling factors. And some of you may have already started this process. And when you do this enabling factor analysis, really what we're asking you to identify is what is the key obstacle, what's the key challenge that may affect the country in their pathway to system transformation. We at GPE has identified 4 dimensions to assess these obstacles. One is the existence of data and evidence. The second is the existence of gender-responsive education sector planning. Third is the coordination within the sector. And fourth is the financing volume equity of the financing. So then we move to the next stage, which is where we prioritize and align. No? So at this stage, the country has already identified what is the priority reform, and the country has already done the enabling factor analysis to identify what are the key challenges and proposed actions to address those key challenges that may impede, that may affect the achievement of the key priority for system transformation. So in this second stage, in prioritize align, really is when the country writes this document that we call the partnership compact. Now, what basically is the country gets the local education group gets an agreement on the priority, identify the challenges and enabling factors, as I mentioned, but also identifies how to use GPE resources to help in the process of obtaining those results of system transformation, and also how our partners will support the process of obtaining the system transformation. And then, once the priority is established and we have the commitment of the partners to address the priority, then the process of implementation starts, no? And then this process is what we call act, learn, and adapt. No, so that is maybe a more administrative in the sense that once the priority has been approved and the use of GPE resources having approved, you have to pick who will be the grant agent that will implement the grant. And then other partners come also and join the implementation of their grants, of their resources to support the system transformation. And all this, of course, learns to a lot of monitoring and learning. And the idea is that eventually this starts to circle again for GPE 2030, when we will start again doing the assessment diagnosis and etc. Now, among this group, I don't know if we have representatives of Bhutan and Maldives. I mean, those are 2 countries where I am the country team lead, and we have gone through the processes of assess and diagnose. Well, they have gone through the process of assess and diagnose and priority align, and they are in the process of developing the grants. Now, for example, in the case of Bhutan, they pick as their priority, as the key priority for system transformation in their country, early learning. You know? So they see that in order to achieve this system transformation, they have to improve the learning and the abilities of kids that just get into primary school, in a sense that will improve learnings during primary schools, and that will push the whole system upwards. And in the case of Bhutan, they identify that the 4 enabling factors that I mentioned were important, but no one was like a key in a state where it will impede the progress in the system transformation. So, of course, they are working on the 4th enabling factors to keep improving, but again, they didn't say that this, if we don't make progress in this enabling factor, this will derail things. In the case of Maldives, was slightly different. Maldives picked equity and inclusion in the education system as their priority, and on the enabling factors, they pick data as enabling factors that really they needed to act urgently. No, they see that in Maldives there is this inequity across the atolls, and really needed to learn more about the sources of the inequity and how these inequities across atoms were affecting student results. And also they put, again, they put data as a priority to address with the enabling factors, in the enabling factors analysis, and to address using GPE resources. In both cases, they have already finalized the partnership compact, and they are in the process of selecting their grant. So I think we have very few slides to come. So
yes, Javier, if you could be aware of the time and try to wrap up in 2 minutes, something like this. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. So I already mentioned the partnership compact. Now, the partnership compact is a document where the country writes the priority, writes the challenges, enabling factor, and establish how to use resources. But also, more importantly, is the document that really states the objective of the country in terms of the system transformation. The deal of the partnership compact is the more compact document. No, probably some of you are used to work with education sector plans, education sector assessments, which tend to be very long documents. The idea of the partnership compact is a compact document, and that again will it states clearly what the objective is. So partners will really remember what the objective is and will strengthen system accountability towards the achievement of that objective. Next slide. And this slide is just what are the main grants the GPE has to support countries as they achieve their system transformation. No, so we have a system capacity grant that is a grant that is like in a way our default grant. All low income countries and isolated or landlocked, small islands and landlocked countries are eligible for this grant. And then we have the we have the system capacity grant that aims to address issues related explicitly to system transformation and to address issues related to the enabling factors analysis and the gaps on those dimensions. The second is the system transformation grant, which is our default grant that all low-income countries and small islands and landlocked countries are eligible for. And we have a new grant in DCP 2025 that is called Girls Education Accelerator, that, as its names mentions, it addresses girls and helps girls achieve similar resources and boys. And we have a multiplier, which is a grant that was accessible in the previous GP cycle, and now it has been expanded to all countries, with really matches additional and new resources into the education sector. And in the case of resources coming from private foundations, it's 1-to-1, and in the case coming from multilaterals or institutionalized donors, the resources are 3-to-1. But just me recap. Now here, so in GP 2025, our key focus is on system transformation. We have this pathway to system transformation, and we expect the KIX activities could support the country at the different stages, either at the first stage when you're doing assess and diagnosing, at the second stage when you're doing prioritization and writing compacts, or when you are doing the implementation, because, for example, KIX can support the monitoring and the mechanisms for mutual accountability that countries are developing. In some other regions, KIX has supported countries in developing their partnership compacts. KIX has provided evidence for the assess and diagnosis stage. And in some countries now, KIX is supporting countries in the monitoring and evaluation of that partnership compact and helping countries to think in the new stages. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you for providing the overview of the GPE's 2025 strategy. I'm aware of the time, and we had some very interesting questions in the chat for both you and for Margarita. There are some questions from Lau regarding the meaning of system transformation. There are questions to Margarita about KIX research, the focus, how to submit abstracts. I invite you to please go to the chat and address these questions directly by responding to the questions in the chat. so that we can move forward and proceed with our presentation for our hub. So I ask Veronica to please screen share. So, and our presentation will focus on our approach for this 2.0 phase. So we will have, if we can move to the second slide. So we'll cover three main points. First is we'll, again, address our approach. We'll give an overview of the three sub-regions, which is a key change that we are implementing in this second phase. And then we'll briefly list the next steps in our work. Now, if we go to this next slide. Yes, so the first key difference here is that in KIX Hub, EAP Hub in 1.0, we were covering 21 countries. Our KIX EMAP 2.0, we are now covering from now until 2027, 35 countries. This means that we are welcoming today formally new countries to our hub, and these are Indonesia, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Tunisia, Ukraine, and also 9 Pacific Island states: Fiji, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, Federated States of Micronesia, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. So, and we are working with these new countries, working with the Ministry of Education and local education group members, so that we can establish a KIX EMAP national team, so that we can then listen to the demands that come from this national team and work on our hub activities to comply with our motto, which is surfacing, amplifying, and using research evidence for policy and planning in our hub countries in the EMAP region. So then if we can proceed. Just a point I mentioned, I forgot to mention this slide. So we have now 3 sub-regions. One sub-region that covers Europe and Central Asia, a second sub-region that covers South Asia, Middle East, and North Africa, a third sub-region that covers Southeast Asia and the Pacific. We will then have an overview of each sub-region later in the presentation. So if you can go now for the next slide. So the next slide is, before we go and I hand over the floor to our principal researcher, Kita Steiner-Kamsi, just to highlight that our team is composed of hub team, central hub team, but also our national team. So you see here a picture of our last retreat, where national coordinators, national steering committees members joined during 3 days in the Maldives to discuss the planning for this second phase and to build also our community. Next slide. And now I hand over to our principal researcher, Kita Steiner-Kamsi, please.
Thank you, Jose Luis. Let me just briefly explain how the hub works in the new phase. Margarita Lopez explained to you very well how IDRC is funding big grants, global grants, regional grants, national grants. That's what IDRC does directly. What IDRC also did is they appointed 4 hubs that do direct country engagement, peer exchange. So we are one of the 4 in the map that Jose Luis just showed to you. We went over the books and we evaluated, we had surveys, we asked our participants how to accentuate phase 2. So let me just show you in this slide how the core mission, the use of research evidence for system transformation has changed, will change in the next phase. The first one, we thought what we were doing, and we got very positive feedback, we will do it as we did, but we will align it more with the GPE system transformation approach that Javier Luque just explained. And he also in the chat explained what it means, bringing the example of the curriculum reform. I think a colleague from Lao also in the chat talked about competency-based curriculum reform. Competency-based curriculum reform happened in every single country of the world because OECD in its DSECO report 2003 and then promoting by means of PISA is pushing for competency-based school reform. So every single country had that move made. But very often that move was only on paper. It was like a results framework, but it did not translate into textbooks. It did not translate into student assessment, all these things that also Javier Luque mentioned. So having a system transformation approach and using research to inform it is to analyze what has been changed, what hasn't, what has worked, what has not worked. As Margarita said, it has to be very applied. It has to be policy focused. So what we are doing, we did it before, but we repurposing it to really align it with the system transformation approach in which we identified bottlenecks. The second one is greater country exchange and rapid customized country support. That's RCCS. I will skip this part because Jose Luis will talk about it. This is completely a new aspect where we engage directly with the countries. What we had, and that's the third point, we had it before, but we will do it even more. And it is a real focus to not only strengthen individual capacity, but also institutional. Because we are already thinking of the year 2027, what we will leave behind when KIX is finished. And we want to leave behind a strong network of national and regional organizations that really do policy studies in education. Most places in the world do teacher training and principals training, but we do not do policy studies. Policy studies means to plan school reform, to evaluate school reform, to improve schools. And this is a field, this is a research field. It needs associations, it needs institutions that do that. We strengthen that, and we have started to do it. Every EPIC conference, which is an abbreviation for Education, Policy and Innovation Conference. We had 2 so far. In every one of those conferences, we collaborate with institutions. We have over 60 associations supporting and co-sponsoring these conferences. We will continue to do so. Next slide. I will skip the next slide, Veronica, because we are running out of time. Let me go to the other one. That's also new. In phase 2, we analyzed and we said, you cannot do a school reform by just working with a few people in the ministry, by having staff paid and hired for a duration of 3 to 5 years. Because all you do, if you do it that way, is you create jobs. And once the money is done, the job is gone also, and the innovation is gone. So we are having 3 levels of engagement. One is to support policy analysts, policy makers, decision makers to learn about innovations. And this is, low level of engagement, we would say. It's like webinars, but we try to do the webinars interactive. These are webinars, these are newsletters, these are podcasts. A second level is where the same group, our target group, policy analysts, policy makers, decision makers, advocacy groups, they participate in learning cycles. That's the second level. The third level is completely new, and that's targeted recruitment. So we have a few fellowships that we give for colleagues who work exactly in new fields, such as results-based financing. So what we did, we have now 2 fellows. We identified which countries have multiplier funds of GPE, and we recruited them directly. So these are the examples where we do targeted recruitment in line with GPE operations, GPE priorities, compacts, partnership contacts. So what is different in phase 2 is this closer collaboration with GPE. In this part of the world, we already had a very close collaboration because the GPE focal point is always the chair of the National Steering Committee that we have, but we will make that stronger. What we also, this slide also shows you that we believe that there is a need for a critical mass to have any change in society, including school reform. That's why we hope to also engage stronger with civil society, with the basic education coalitions, with Education Out Loud, and all the other entities that really support reform in their countries. Let me stop here. We are running out of time, and I'm giving the floor to Jose Luis. Jose Luis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gitta. So let's move the slides. Thank you so much for the overview, and we'll go. So this was the example of a system transformation approach, but we can proceed. Okay, let's move now. So we were seeing the strategy. Now this is the listing of the 3 key objectives that the hub is pursuing. So one objective, the first objective focuses on knowledge production. So you see the increase of production of contextually relevant policy research. Then the second objective focuses on knowledge exchange and knowledge mobilization. And the third objective focuses on capacity strengthening for production and use of research evidence. So these 3 objectives are then incorporated in the several activities that the hub has. There are 2 components that are critical for all the activities. First, gender equality and inclusion. We are cross-cuttingly focusing on gender equality and inclusion in all our activities. And the second point that is very important is that all the activities, they respond to existing demands from our national teams, from our KIX community. So now let's have a look now at the different activities that the hub was offering in this last phase and will continue to offer. So we see here an overview where we have on the yellow rows, the 3 lines of objectives: knowledge production, knowledge exchange and mobilization, and capacity strengthening, the different type of activities. Now let's go and have a deeper dive in each one of the activities. So webinars. Webinars have been one of our key activities in the past, and we continue to be so in this second phase of KIX, of the KIX Hub. So far, we have had 16 webinars. Webinars are knowledge exchange events. The topics come from demands from our countries. We have presenters from the region with contextualized examples as well. Webinars are usually in 3 languages: English, Russian, and Arabic. In this second phase of the project, we'll start to have sub-regional webinars that will more closely address thematics that cover each one of the sub-regions. You see here the examples that we put in this slide. We have on the bottom line, we have 2 webinars that was done in collaboration with KIX research projects. So there is here also, webinar is one of the vehicles that the hub is using to make sure that we are disseminating the findings and the progress of the KIX research that is happening in the region as well. So let's go to the next slide. So learning cycles. Learning cycles are a key activity of our hub, and they will continue to be so. Learning cycles are professional development opportunities offered to national education experts. Usually they take 5 to 6 weeks, and selected national experts, these can be policymakers, researchers, practitioners, they work together in teams to analyze, contextualize, and produce new knowledge on policy analysis and innovation exchange. Learning cycles are designed to strengthen the use of data and research evidence for each one of the countries' education policy and planning. In the first phase of our work, we had a total of 5 learning cycles. Over 300 people participated with more than 60 national teams. Learning cycles then, at the end of the learning cycle, each team produces a knowledge product. And we have here over 20 publications, including 17 case studies that we have seen some examples here in the slides of some of these case studies. And we are working with national teams to make sure that these case studies can feed into the existing policy dialogue and hopefully influence some policy changes and inform some policy decisions and planning decisions in the different countries. So next slide. Workshops are another activity that the hub has been offering to our region. Capacity strengthening, usually of 1 to 2 days. We have had so far 2 workshops, 1 workshop focusing on the use of data, and a recent workshop in the last month that was focusing on grant writing, research grant writing skills. They have been a lot of interest. Over 400 participants joined these 2 workshops. Again, the next slide talks about our education policy innovation conferences. We have had so far 2 EPIC, so education policy innovation is short for EPIC. Well, the first one was in 2021 and it lasted 4 days. And the second one was in June this year, and it went through 3 days. We had over 2,000 people attending, and more than 170 presenters from the region. So this is a forum for researchers, policymakers, practitioners to share their data-driven research, their implementation experience, best practices in the region. We will continue to hold these conferences as it has been such a forum of great interest that we have seen so far. So the next slide focuses on our retreat. We talked about our retreat. You see here pictures of our national team, our wider national team working together. It was an opportunity for over 35 participants from our 18 countries to plan together our second phase of work. Then the next slide covers the podcast. So podcasts are a vehicle to surface experts and expertise from the region. So far, we have 24 podcast episodes. We'll continue to give the floor to experts from the region, including, especially now, from our new countries. We'll also open the opportunity to have thematic podcasts that address demands from our national teams and from each of the sub-regions. Now slides, next slide. Yes, so fellowships. This is a new activity that we are introducing now in this second phase of KIX. This first fellowship that we provided was a partial scholarship for the Innovative Financing for Education, Executive Education, Innovative Financing for Education, Executive Education course. The fellowships were distributed to a selected group of national policy experts from two of our countries, from Uzbekistan and Bhutan. And it builds on past work that the Hub has been developing on education finance and knowledge exchange on this area of innovative finance for education. So now we enter into another activity that we are introducing in this second phase, which is the rapid customized country support. Gita already briefly mentioned about it. We put there that we are in the pilot stage. We have now currently 3 pilots rapid customized country support, 1 pilot on 21st century skills in the Maldives, 1 pilot on inclusive education in Europe and Central Asia, and 1 pilot RCCS on teacher shortage analysis in Cambodia. So what is country support? Country support is designed to resolve and address specific requests from the Ministry of Education, linked with needs for evidence, capacity strengthening, and knowledge gaps aligned with country policy priorities. Usually the country support follows on previous work that the teams have been doing on knowledge exchange in other activities, but can also derive from a specific demand from the GPE compact process, from the GPE operational model. A protocol for the country support, we can move to the next slide, please. Yes. Yes, so a protocol for the country support is being discussed at KIX program level before we will share it with all the countries. So far, we are focusing on these pilot projects for this pilot RCCS. And the protocol we have been following so far is that country support, the demand arrives from the national team, from the steering committee, and from the coordinators of our countries. Then there is a work together between the Hub and the national teams to design the concept notes and the plan for implementation of country support. And then the Hub accompanies the ministry and accompanies the implementing agency for the different country support activities. Again, we are in pilot stage. We will be sharing the learnings of these pilots and then making sure that all countries can benefit from this new activity. So the next slide. So the next slide now, this is what we have been doing. So what we want to achieve, what we have achieved so far. So we talk about results, and I hand over to Marina to guide us here in this area. Marina, who is our education policy and monitoring and evaluation lead for our Hub.
Sure, thank you, Jose. So just to give you an overview of some of the promising results we've been seeing in this first phase of the Hub that finished recently. So as mentioned earlier, we had 21 countries in the first phase, and we've seen stakeholders from 19 of those countries actively participating in the Hub activities, producing knowledge about their national education systems, and most importantly, sharing and exchanging a lot with other stakeholders on that knowledge as well. And some specific results we've been seeing from those knowledge exchange activities, knowledge production activities in the hub. In 19 countries, we heard from participants that they acquired new knowledge and skills in several policy relevant topics for their education system. So one example is the use of geospatial data in education. In 16 countries, we also saw relationships being created, collaborations between stakeholders in different groups, and this is both inside the countries and also across different countries in the region. And some of these, for example, have resulted in collaborations on inclusive education. In 18 countries, we also saw some of participants of our activities identifying education policies and practices through their participation in the hub activities, education policies and practices that are relevant for the education system and that they will be discussing internally with other relevant actors. And in 5 countries, we saw key stakeholders starting to mobilize actors at national level to actually take all of that from the discussions and develop or implement new policies and practices. Those have been cases in Maldives, Vietnam, Kyrgyzstan, Cambodia, and Uzbekistan so far. And we are expecting, of course, to see much more happening in the second phase of the hub. If you don't mind going to the next slides. So for the second phase of the hub, we'll continue the journey with the countries that have been with us from the beginning. And as mentioned before, we have some new countries joining us. So now we'll have 35 countries in the hub, and they're really expecting that across these 35 countries, as many stakeholders in the education system can participate in the hub activities, contribute with their knowledge, learn from others, and really bring back those learnings for the education system. So acquiring new knowledge and skills through their participation, identifying, as mentioned previously, policies and practices from other contexts that could be relevant for their education system, but also building closer relationships, collaborations with relevant stakeholders in their country, with stakeholders in other countries that can contribute for those policies and discussions to move forward as well. And then, of course, bring back, as we keep saying, right? Bring back that knowledge into the policy debate in the education system. So it can be an evidence-based debate and can advance policies and practices in the education systems as well. And here at the bottom, we see what we're really hoping to achieve in as many countries as possible to contribute to policy process, so that the knowledge generated, exchanged in KIX can contribute to the creation of new education policies or to the reform of education policies and practices in those countries with a contribution from KIX. So this is the journey that we have ahead of us, and we're hoping to have as many countries as possible also achieving such results in the coming years.
Thank you, Marina. Then I quickly jump directly into the national teams. We have now a slide that's covered the critical point in our hub are the constitution of national teams within each country. I won't go into much detail on this because we'll have sub-regional launches for each sub-region where we can discuss this in more detail. But just in general terms, we have in each country a KIX EMAP national coordinator and the KIX EMAP national steering committee with representatives from government, from academia, from civil society, and also from the International Development Partners Group of LEG members. So we'll have opportunities to discuss this more in the next events we'll have for the sub-regions. As an important message here that we want to communicate that is critical in this next phase of work, it's the stronger connections at country level. We want to make sure that all KIX work is being used, is useful for the overall systems approach that GPE is implementing and is promoting in each country. This is a simple diagram that where we want to see closer connections between our coordinators, the GP focal points between the steering committee and the local education group. We are working so that to make sure that within the steering committee already we have local education group members. This is a work in progress, just something that is a signal that we want to send, want to see this closer integration and complementarity. So overview of the three sub-regions. Let's go quickly. I talked in the beginning that there are 3 new sub-regions. And then with no further delay, I hand over to the first knowledge lead of the sub-region of Europe and Central Asia, Jules Levin.
Спасибо всем. Приветствую еще раз вас всех.
Thank you so much. I would like to welcome you once again on behalf of KIX EMAP. My name is Julia Levin. I'm one of the knowledge leads at KIX. I work in close cooperation with my project officer, Veronika Mosolova. I'm responsible for our activities in Albania, Georgia, Kyrgyz Republic, Republic of Moldova, Mongolia, and Tajikistan. One of the newly joined countries is Ukraine and Uzbekistan. I provide support to cooperation and all our activities in the sub-region. And I must say that we have not yet developed strong cooperation with Albania. We had a question from Albania in the chat. Well, we will be glad to have some partners in Albania. So please approach us if you want to build partnership with us. And now I would like to share about our activities, about my work in the sub-region with the countries of the sub-region. We started with the first cycle on scaling of innovation. So also in this sub-region, we organized our first EPIC conference, and I would like to focus on what we are doing today. Today, we are launching a pilot initiative for rapid country support, and our thematic priority is inclusive education, and at present a consortium consisting from 5 countries, Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, is actually organizing a sharing of knowledge on inclusive education with the objective of carrying out an analysis and reflection on the recent development of policies in the 5 last years and identify ways to move forward, also to make an overview of the practices of training inclusive teachers and what could be the practices to strengthen their cooperation with one another. At this moment, I am in Georgia. When we have had our first exchange, we had a visit from a delegation of NGOs, as well as colleagues from the Ministry of Health. And one of the outcomes of this sharing meeting, after we actually analyzed the system, after we visited the Parliament, the Ministry of Education, we visited special schools, inclusive schools. We attended some classes for inclusive teachers training, and one of the outcomes of all the discussions is the plan to organize roundtables dedicated to specific topics that are of interest for our colleagues here, like, for instance, how to draft an individual learning plan, how to train inclusive teachers, what is better to send disabled children or children with special needs to special schools or to ordinary regular schools. Now we're going to have a series of roundtables in Georgia, and maybe if other countries also show interest to the same topics, so we could organize roundtables there as well. And now I want to give the floor to our national KIX coordinator from Kyrgyz Republic, Janil Bakalayeva, so that she would share about their experience and her personal experience with KIX, and would share her expectations from the next phase. Please, Janil.
colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank and greet all the wonderful colleagues and peers who are here today and who have been engaged in KIX and will be engaged therein. For Kyrgyzstan, participation in this project has been quite vibrant. We have had a lot of exchange, we have had a lot of exciting new ideas and experiences for educators in our country and in the region. Representatives of the Kyrgyz Ministry of Education and Science, education institutions and agencies, schools, universities, NGOs, associations have been actively participating in KIX various activities, including EPIC conferences, learning cycles, webinars, and workshops. Just for instance, Kyrgyz teams have produced 2 studies on equitable access to education with geospatial data and scaling innovations in a preschool project, but also a handful of podcasts, experience videos, interviews, and so on. We have also had 2 KIX grantees, one Tallinn Forum and the other project has been carried out by UNICEF. And of course, as Yulia has just mentioned, the cooperation has gone regional with a group of 5 public associations from the Kyrgyz Republic, Georgia, Moldova, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan, launching an inter-country exchange focused on inclusive education for children with disabilities. So as you can see, participation of my country has been truly international and vibrant in the framework of KIX, and I hope for it to remain so. Just very shortly, a lot of wonderful ideas and interesting perspectives have been enlightened now in this meeting. This is a good road ahead, and we're very much interested to move forward alongside all the mentioned activities, directions, grants, and further learning and exchange opportunities that colleagues have elaborated on beforehand, before me. I won't repeat that all because that would be too repetitive, but I can say that it would not be maybe too bold for me to say that on behalf of my colleagues, peers, educators who are here today in the meeting, but also who have not had the opportunity to join, but who are nevertheless very much interested in KIX EMAP next phase, that we are very much willing and eager to continue our cooperation in the framework of KIX. So thank you for your attention.
So now let's hand over. Thank you so much, Janil. Julia, if you want to talk about the sub-regional launch and when it's going to happen. I think now you can unmute. So.
Okay. Да, я уже чуть-чуть рассказала на данный момент.
Yes, I have actually shared a little bit about our future plans as well. I told the participants that we are going to have a sub-regional launch on October 25 at 1:30 Geneva time. So here you can see the timing for different time zones of our participating countries. And during the sub-regional launch, we will speak in more detail about the oncoming events. I actually touched upon this already. So we have a huge interest from participating country to continue working on the on inclusive education as a thematic priority and to start discussing specific issues related to inclusive education. So we're very open to all the willing participants. You can join. And again, so let's meet again at 1:30 Geneva time on October 25 for the sub-regional launch. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And now I hand over to Rasha Sharaf, who is our knowledge lead for the sub-region of South Asia and MENA. Rasha?
Hello, everyone. Before I switch to Arabic, I want to make sure that fellow colleagues from South Asia are on the English channel. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. معكم رشا شرف القائد التعليمي.
Hello, this is Rasha Sharaf.
Sorry. معكم رشا شرف القائد التعليمي.
This is Rasha Sharaf, education lead for the South Asia region and the MENA region. Of course, currently, Bangladesh, Maldives, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka are countries that have recently joined. We have also Sudan and Tunisia. And there was a question in the chat box related to whether Tunisia is one of the countries that have joined or not. In fact, the good news is that it's one of the recent countries that have joined the South Asia region and the MENA, as well as the Yemen from the previous phase. And as a matter of fact, well, I would like to welcome all the participants from the countries of the region, the non-members. I've seen a lot of participants from Jordan, from Morocco, from Somalia, from Kuwait, from the UAE. So I'd like to extend my heartfelt welcome to all of these countries, even though they are not members, but they have the right to take part in the different proceedings and events held by the center in the region. Well, in the first phase, the countries of the region were able to take part in all of the activities that have been organized by the center, mainly the learning cycles. In fact, this participation yielded a lot of valuable reports for the third learning cycle that was about the geographical information analysis and using the information for policy making and decision making, and also the LC4 that generated a lot of valuable reports from Afghanistan, the Sindh region related to the education in rural zones, and also for Yemen when it comes to education in emergency situations and also in conflict zones. And also we have the LC5 or Learning Cycle 5 that has generated very valuable reports related to training of teachers in all of the countries, including Bangladesh, Pakistan, Yemen, Sudan, and the rest of the countries. One of the main success stories that makes us proud is the adoption of policies in some of the countries as a result of their positive participation in the different activities, including, for instance, what has happened in the Maldives. And I would like to call my colleague and my dear friend, Dr. Faisal Musa, to take the floor in order to present to you the detailed information on what has happened in the Maldives. But in fact, some of the political important decisions in education have been taken, such as equality of chances in education, and also establishing new secondary schools in the deprived regions, the regions that are deprived from such a kind of education. And also the 21st century skills have been adopted in the different educational curricula, and this has led to different fast interventions in the countries in order to integrate the 21st century skills in the educational curricula in the Maldives. And I'd like to call now Dr. Faisal Musa to suggest his perspective and to share his own experience related to the impact of the project on Maldives. Dr. Faisal, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rasha. Well, in the first phase of the KIX, Maldives has taken part in a number of activities, including webinars, learning cycles, and also contributed to, well, Maldives has taken part in 4 of the learning cycles, namely the equitable access to education with geospatial data, integration of 21st century skills in the curriculum, and also in 2022, the 2 learning cycles, one on diagnostic tools for improving educational policy planning and teacher professional development at scale. And in fact, the Maldives teams has contributed to the knowledge products in the form of knowledge reports as an outcome of the learning cycles. And also members from Maldives education community has contributed to some of the podcasts. And also, I'm very, very honored and proud to host the first KIX retweet earlier this year in the Maldives. Well, talking about the adoption and expansion or uptake of KIX activities in the country, I would say, like for example, some of the activities like the expansion of A-level schools and the introduction of satellite schools are partly supported by findings of the learning cycle on equitable access to education with geospatial data is explained by policy officers from the Ministry of Education. It's not fully influenced by the findings of the learning cycles. However, the findings of the learning cycle was support for making the decisions regarding establishment of satellite schools and expansion of A-level to some of the islands where A-level was not provided before. Another example is the RCC which is an expansion of the learning cycle 2 on integration of 21st century skills in the curriculum. This is a demand-driven activity on request of the National Institute of Education in the Maldives. At the time, we are in the process of we are continuing the RCC, and we are hoping to look into how far we have been able to achieve the intended objectives of this RCCS activity in the Maldives. So thank you very much, Rasha. Back to you.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور فيصل.
Thank you, Dr. Faisal. Best of luck in the Maldives and all the countries taking part in the center. I'd like to seize this opportunity to invite you for the lunch for the South Asia and MENA region, which is going to take place on the 25th of October at 12 noon Geneva time. And you can see written here the different appointments in the different countries, the interviews, and I'd like to invite all the participant countries, members and non-members, in order to discuss the exchange of experiences and in order to establish the plan and discuss the plan in the upcoming phase. And you may use your mobile phone to scan the QR code and to enter the registration application in order for you to be able to participate effectively in the launching event for this region specifically. Thank you so much. I leave the floor to my colleague Amy Crampton for the Pacific region and Southeastern Asia. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for hanging on to the end. I'm the knowledge lead for Southeast Asia and Pacific. My name is Amy Crompton, and I'm supported by Project Officer Annika Harish-Ganesh. And we support many countries in this region, as you can see on the map, including Bhutan, Cambodia, Indonesia, Lao PDR, Myanmar on hold, Nepal, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, Pacific Islands, Timor-Leste, and Vietnam. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to those who are highlighted here in orange, which are our new countries in this extension: Indonesia, Philippines, and the Pacific Islands, including Fiji, Kiribati, Federated States of Micronesia, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. So thanks for joining. Just a few highlights to mention in our sub-region. As my colleagues Rasha and Julia have mentioned, we've had strong participation in learning cycles since the beginning of this project. Also, very strong participation in the EPIC conferences. And then a couple highlights from some of our spotlight on some of our countries from KIX 1.0. Our coordinator in Nepal, Balchandra Lital, he's organized with the National KIX Structure a Like conference to promote knowledge, learning, and exchange in innovation in Nepal. And then an ongoing RCCS, Rapid Customized Country Support in Cambodia, to look at, to do an analysis of teacher shortage and teacher oversupply in urban and rural areas in Cambodia. And I will also have a sub-regional launch for these countries in 2, which I'll talk about in a minute, to dive deeper into the upcoming activities that we'll have in this extension phase, KIX 2.0. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Nguyen Nguyen, who is our interim national KIX coordinator for Vietnam, to talk about Vietnam's experience and her aspirations for KIX 2.0. So over to you, Nguyen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts at the KIX EMAP 2.0 launch and welcome the new countries to KIX EMAP. To us in Vietnam, KIX activities has always been of high relevance and in great response and alignment with the national priorities here in the country, which I believe is thanks to a well-researched and planned process of needs assessment and learning design. We especially appreciate the quality of the learning cycles. They are very well structured, well facilitated, and allow for maximum interaction and knowledge sharing among the country teams. The participants of the learning cycles are deeply engaged in the problem-based learning process and focus on developing action plans to apply the new knowledge and skills to address the identified problems. During phase 1 of KIX, Vietnam participants took part in many activities like the learning cycles on 21st century skills, teacher professional development at scale, and also various webinars. Vietnam representatives were also featured in the KIX podcast, and we contributed 2 presentations at the last Education Policy and Innovation Conference. The members of the local education group, the Ministry of Education and Training, and relevant in-country networks are well informed and very supportive of the KIX Hub activities. Moving forward to phase 2, we hope to formalize the permanent national KIX structure and become even more involved in the KIX EMAP activities. We highly value KIX EMAP's important role as the broker of knowledge that connects us with the needed international sources of expertise, evidence, innovations, and best practices in policy and programming, and at the same time shares and amplifies the experience and lessons we learn in Vietnam with the region. We are very excited about the KIX EMAP 2.0 plan, especially the rapid customized country support in the phase 2, and we hope to be able to tap into that support framework very soon. Thank you very much, and over to Amy.
Thank you so much, Nguyen. It was great to hear from you, and we're looking forward to collaborating with Vietnam in this next phase. So I'd like to just give a note to our announce our sub-regional launch dates for the Southeast Asia and Pacific countries. We're going to do this in 2 since we have such a wide array of time zones and countries in this wonderful sub-region. So we'll do the Southeast Asia sub-regional launch on the 26th of October at 12 p.m. Geneva time. So you can scan that, and we can also share this registration link in the chat as well. And the second launch will be on the 27th of October at 12 a.m. Geneva time. So this will be morning time for those countries in the Pacific. So please do join us. We look forward to talking in more detail about the activities and ways that we can work together in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you to all the knowledge leads for guiding us into the sub-regional launches, to an overview of their respective sub-regions. I know we are over time, just a couple of minutes, talk about next steps. So the main next step is that, if you can go for the next slide. So the first point is we have an open baseline survey now. So this is a good opportunity for all of you that haven't filled out the survey yet to let us know your expectations, your demands for the next phase of our work. There is a lot about the strategic view of the hub, but also how we will operationalize the next phase of our work and our upcoming activities in the different subregions. The deadline for the baseline survey is on the 3rd of October, and the links are being shared in the chat. Then the conversation continues. There was a lot of questions, a lot of comments in the chat. Let's move those conversations and let's continue when we do the sub-regional launches that were announced. We will also be sharing the recording of this session and make sure that all the relevant links that you need to continue engaging with us are available to you. Finally, as we close our session, as we always do, we will invite you to fill out a post-event survey where for you to comment how you found this event was and how we can do better in the upcoming events. So we thank you all for your participation, for engagement, and we look forward to seeing you more in the next phase in the start of our KIX 2.0. Thank you, everyone.